First contact and cultural shock. The moment Captain Elena Reyes stepped onto the Galactic Alliance diplomatic vessel with her service animal, she inadvertently caused the first interstellar diplomatic incident in human history. Alarms blared across the alien ship. Emergency barriers slammed into place. 3 different species of security personnel emerged from hidden compartments, weapons drawn. All because of Brutus, her golden retriever therapy dog, who sat calmly at her heel, tongue lolling out in a doggy smile. "You've brought an apex predator aboard our vessel," shrieked Ambassador Skill of the Talaxian Confederation, his translucent skin flashing warning patterns of crimson and yellow. "This is a profound breach of diplomatic protocol." Elena froze, genuinely confused. "Brutus, he's just a therapy dog." First contact had been proceeding smoothly for 6 months. The Galactic Alliance, comprising 23 spacefaring civilizations, had approached Earth with caution but genuine interest in humanity's rapid technological advancement. Trade agreements were being negotiated, cultural exchanges planned, but no one had fought to discuss Earth's companion species. Admiral Jackson cleared his throat. "Ambassador Skill, there appears to be a misunderstanding. Canines are domesticated animals on Earth. They pose no threat." The Talaxian's skin rippled with disbelief. "You've domesticated predators and brought one to a diplomatic function." Elena knelt beside Brutus, who remained perfectly calm despite the commotion. Brutus is specifically trained to provide emotional support. His presence helps humans regulate anxiety in stressful situations. You derive emotional comfort from a predatory species. This came from Vrilma, the Meridian representative, whose species evolved from herd animals similar to Earth's antelope. How is this possible? Thus began humanity's first lesson in galactic zoopolitics. As it turned out, most spacefaring species had evolved either as specialized predators who developed tools used to become more efficient hunters, or as prey animals who developed technology primarily as defense mechanisms. The concept of mutual companionship between different species, particularly across the predator-prey divide, was revolutionary. Humans appear to have evolved as what we would classify as mid-tier omnivores, explained xenobiologist Dr. Thrixell in her emergency briefing to the Alliance Council. Neither specialized predators nor dedicated prey. This may explain their unusual tendency to form symbiotic relationships with other species. Footage of humans interacting with Earth animals spread across the galactic networks like wildfire. Cats sleeping on human laps, children riding horses, marine biologists swimming with dolphins, rock climbers accompanied by birds. Each video seemed more outrageous than the last to alien viewers. "They ride larger predators for recreation," noted one Paxian news commentator, mandibles clicking in agitation. Is there anything humans fear? The diplomatic summit continued with extreme caution. Elena was permitted to keep Brutus present, but behind a containment field that made the golden retriever whine pitifully until she explained he was accustomed to physical contact. The concept of petting required 3 xenolinguists and a primitive demonstration before the aliens grasped it. "You deliberately touched the fur-covered predator for mutual pleasure." Ambassador Skill's translator struggled with the concept, and it does not attack. "He enjoys it," Elena demonstrated, reaching through the containment field to scratch behind Brutus's ears. The dog leaned into her touch, eyes half closing in contentment. Several alien diplomats recoiled. 2 recorded the interaction with scientific instruments. 1, a junior Meridian aide, inched closer with obvious fascination. Progress came unexpectedly 2 days later when Brutus escaped his quarters. The security alert sent the station into lockdown, with terrified alien personnel barricading themselves in secure rooms. Camera footage later showed Brutus simply wandering the corridors, occasionally sniffing interesting spots, tail wagging. The crisis peaked when he encountered a young Meridian researcher who had been too absorbed in her work to hear the alerts. Security footage captured what happened next. The Meridian freezing in terror as Brutus approached, sniffed her curiously, then simply sat down, looking up with his head tilted to one side. When the human security team arrived 15 minutes later, they found the Meridian tentatively extending a limb toward Brutus while the dog patiently waited. The researcher was making the same soft cooing sounds she had observed humans using. "He's so soft," the Meridian told reporters afterward, "and his body temperature is higher than ours." It was not unpleasant. The incident became a cultural flashpoint. While conservative factions across the Alliance demanded stricter protocols regarding Earth fauna, others showed cautious curiosity. Soon, humanity was answering a flood of questions about their relationship with Earth's creatures. You allow predators to sleep in your dwellings. You feed birds in public recreational areas. Your offspring interact with juvenile versions of multiple species. Your medical facilities use animals for psychological treatment. The Galactic Alliance had encountered over 400 intelligent species, but humans were the first to systematically domesticate other creatures for companionship rather than strictly practical purposes. It baffled xenopsychologists and delighted xenobiologists. 6 months into diplomatic relations, the Meridian delegation made a revolutionary request. They asked to interact with more Earth animals under controlled conditions. Their junior researchers' experience with Brutus had sparked scientific interest in whether other species could benefit from the emotional regulation humans claimed to derive from animal companionship. The resulting demonstration at the newly established Earth Embassy became the most watched broadcast in galactic history. Humans brought a carefully selected assortment of domesticated animals, several dog breeds, therapy cats, a remarkably patient rabbit, and a trained parrot. The Meridian scientists approached with scientific rigor and obvious trepidation. What began as structured observation devolved into something much more significant when Ambassador Vrilna herself approached Daisy, an elderly therapy cat, with extraordinary patience. With trembling limbs, the dignitary extended a tentative touch to the purring feline. "It vibrates," she announced with wonder. "The vibration creates an unusual resonance with our sensory receptors. It's soothing." By the end of the session, 3 Meridian scientists were openly petting the animals, 2 were feeding treats to the dogs, and the ambassador was sitting cross-legged on the floor with Daisy curled in her lap. Galactic social media exploded with commentary. The historic meeting concluded with an announcement. The Meridians proposed the establishment of an interspecies cultural exchange program focused specifically on human-animal relationships. The proposal passed the Alliance Council by a narrow margin, with vocal opposition from the predatory Arcturian Empire and the Insectoid Hive Collective, both of whom considered the practice disturbing. Admiral Jackson, addressing the Earth media after the vote, summarized the situation with unexpected poetry. "We've discovered that our gentleness with other species may be our most alien quality. In a galaxy divided between predator and prey, humanity's greatest contribution might be teaching others that different species can live together not just in tolerance, but in love." As the preparations for the exchange program began, no one, human or alien, could have predicted how this unique aspect of humanity would soon save lives across the galaxy. The Cosmic Zoo Initiative. Dr. Maya Patil adjusted the environmental controls in her quarters aboard the Meridian research vessel Harmony Seeker. She had expected many challenges as one of the first human xenobiologists accepted into the Galactic Alliance's cultural exchange program, but the constant climate adjustments weren't among them. Temperature stabilizing at 18 degrees Celsius, announced the ship's eye. Warning: this setting remains suboptimal for Meridian physiology. "I know," Maya sighed, "but Pickle gets too hot otherwise." Pickle, her 3-year-old bearded dragon, lounged contentedly on his heating rock, apparently unaware of the interstellar diplomatic significance of his presence. As one of 12 Earth animals officially permitted in the exchange program, he had his own diplomatic identification file. The door chimed, and Maya called, "Enter." Science Director Threlva glided in, her slender frame moving with the characteristic grace of the Meridian species. 6 months into the exchange program, Threlva had graduated from cautious observation of Pickle to occasionally allowing the lizard to rest on her arm. "The data from yesterday's interaction session is remarkable," Threlva announced without preamble. Participants showed a 32% reduction in stress hormones following just 15 minutes of supervised interaction with the canines. Maya smiled. "That's consistent with human studies. We've used animal therapy for centuries." "Yes, but these are Paxians," Threlva replied with obvious excitement. "Their evolutionary history as prey to arachnid predators makes their positive response to mammals unprecedented. Something about the tactile sensation of fur and the rhythmic movements of breathing appears to trigger calming responses across multiple species neurochemistry." The cultural exchange program had expanded far beyond its original scope. What began as scientific curiosity had evolved into the Cosmic Zoo Initiative, a multi-planet project studying the psychological and physiological effects of positive animal interactions on different sentient species. The results were transforming galactic medicine. Species that had evolved as prey animals, living with constant background anxiety about predators, showed significant health improvements from controlled animal interaction sessions. Blood pressure stabilized. Immune responses improved. Sleep cycles regulated. Meanwhile, on 17 different worlds, human-animal behaviorists were helping species forge better relationships with their own planet's fauna. The most dramatic success had come on Arcturus Prime, where generations of conflict between the dominant predatory Arcturians and the native avian species had been reframed through the human concept of falconry. "It's not domestication as we practice it," explained Marco Rodriguez, the head of the Arcturian project, in his weekly report. "But we've helped the Arcturians develop a cooperative hunting relationship with the Krellbirds. Both species benefit, and the ecosystem sustains itself better than with their previous approach of simply exterminating problem creatures." But not all were pleased with humanity's influence. Conservative factions across multiple species decried what they called the contamination of natural boundaries. Protests erupted on 14 worlds. Trade sanctions were threatened. The program faced its first serious political challenge. The crisis point came during a scientific symposium on New Meridia, where Dr. Patel was presenting her findings on cross-species neurochemical responses. A radical group of Paxian traditionalists stormed the venue, demanding an end to what they called the perversion of evolutionary destiny. In the ensuing chaos, the environmental containment systems failed. New Meridia's atmosphere, while breathable to humans, contained trace elements toxic to several visitor species, including the Talaxians. As emergency barriers activated, separating different parts of the conference center, 12 Talaxian delegates found themselves trapped in a section with rapidly deteriorating air quality. Emergency protocols dictated waiting for properly equipped rescue teams. The Talaxians had perhaps 20 minutes before permanent respiratory damage would occur. The rescue teams were 30 minutes away. Maya Patel found herself in a section adjacent to the trapped Talaxians, separated only by a transparent barrier. With her was Carol Chen, an animal handler, and her 2 search and rescue dogs, genetically engineered border collies with enhanced sensory capabilities. Those environmental suits, Maya pointed to a storage locker across the Talaxian chamber, if they could reach them. "The dogs can navigate the toxic space," Carol said immediately, understanding. "But will the Talaxians trust them?" Ambassador Skill, who had once been so horrified by Brutus, was among the trapped delegates. Maya established communication through the barrier's intercom. "Ambassador, we can help, but you need to trust us. And our dogs. Your predators." Skill's skin flashed with alarm patterns. "How?" "They can bring you environmental suits from the locker, but you'll need to put aside your fear and work with them." What followed became legendary in Alliance history. Maya and Carol sent the dogs through a maintenance hatch with sealed emergency packs attached to their harnesses. The Talaxians, fighting against millennia of evolutionary instinct, forced themselves to remain still as the dogs approached. "Don't show fear," Maya coached through the intercom. "They respond to emotional cues. Speak calmly, move slowly. Ambassador's skill, gasping in the increasingly toxic air, was the first to master his terror. He knelt, following Maya's instructions, and spoke softly to the dog named Athena. The border collie, sensing his distress, brought him a pack containing an environmental suit. One by one, the dogs delivered suits to each Talaxian. When 2 delegates collapsed from exposure, the dogs dragged them to their companions before retrieving more suits. By the time emergency crews arrived, all 12 Talaxians were safely suited, and Ambassador's skill was sitting on the floor with Athena's head in his lap. "I spoke to it, her, as you instructed," he explained later, "and instead of attacking, she saved my life. I've spent my career believing that different species can only interact through dominance or submission, predator or prey. I was profoundly wrong." Footage of the rescue spread across galactic networks. Opposition to the cultural exchange program collapsed overnight. Within a year, companion animal programs had been established on 43 worlds. The Galactic Medical Association officially recognized interspecies therapeutic interaction as a legitimate medical practice. Research into the evolutionary and biological basis for cross-species bonding became the fastest-growing field in xenobiology. 5 years after Captain Alina Reyes first caused a diplomatic incident by bringing Brutus aboard an alien vessel, she attended the opening ceremony of the Galactic Companionship Center on the Alliance capital world. Beside her stood Admiral Jackson, now Earth's senior representative to the Alliance. "Did you ever imagine this?" Alina asked, watching as representatives from 17 species interacted with an assortment of Earth animals. Ambassador's skill was demonstrating to a group of fascinated Hive Collective members how to properly scratch a golden retriever's ears. "Never," Jackson admitted. "We thought our technology would be our greatest contribution to the galactic community. Turns out it was our capacity for forming bonds with other species." The Meridian Science Director, Threlva, joined them, now comfortable enough to have a small tabby cat perched on her shoulder. "We've identified a neurochemical pathway that appears common across most sentient species," she explained. "It seems interspecies bonding activates neural regions that evolve for parental care across multiple evolutionary paths. So the capacity was always there," Alina mused. "It just needed to be awakened." "Precisely. And that may be humanity's greatest gift to the galaxy." Threlva gestured toward a group of alien children carefully petting rabbits under supervision. "You've taught us that the divisions between predator and prey, between different evolutionary paths, are not insurmountable. That different species can care for each other." Admiral Jackson smiled as Brutus, now elderly but still dignified, leaned against his leg. "All because we decided, somewhere back in prehistory, that wolves might make good friends." The Galactic Alliance formally recognized the human-animal bond as an intangible cultural heritage of exceptional value. Xenohistorians began re-examining humanity's unique evolutionary path, theorizing that perhaps their position as neither specialized predator nor dedicated prey had allowed them to develop their remarkable capacity for cross-species empathy. In her keynote address at the opening ceremony, Maya Patel summarized what had become known across the galaxy as the human perspective. "Throughout our history on Earth, humans have often focused on what divides us from each other and from other species. Out among the stars, we've discovered our greatest strength may be our capacity to bridge those divides, to reach across boundaries of biology and evolution, finding connection where others see only separation. To recognize that different doesn't mean dangerous, and that sometimes the most profound relationships can form between the most unlikely companions. On dozens of worlds, beings who had once feared each other were learning the simple joy that humans had discovered millennia ago, that sometimes the universe seems less frightening when you have someone to pet."